differences between lucid and astral dreaming, or astral projection, versus lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is generally regarded to be an imaginative experience that has meaning to the individual doing the dreaming. On the inside, it's not an objective experience taking place in our physical world. Astral projection, on the other hand, is regarded to be a step beyond lucid dreaming. And astral projection is when you actually are in an astral form and you're interacting and experiencing the real scientific outer world. That outer world does not have to be Earth. It can be a number of places and dimensions. But concretely, that's the difference. An example of astral projection is a long time ago, I would say 20 years ago, I was at a hospital. And I was in line to donate blood. And the line was a little bit long, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, how long is this going to take? Well, it didn't seem to take that long. And I got to the point where I was sitting at the desk next to the nurse, and the nurse explained to me that she was kind of new. And so I was like, okay. And then she went to find a vein and missed the vein. And then she apologized, and she went back in to find another vein. And when I've donated blood before, you know, generally you hope they hit the vein the first time. But she didn't get it the second time, she didn't even get it the third time. And so I told her, I said, hey, can you hold on for a minute? Because that hurts. But yet, as I said, that hurts, I realized it didn't hurt. And I was thinking to myself, why doesn't that hurt? And the awareness came on me, I wonder if I'm having a lucid dream. I looked down at the carpet, which in some of the lucid dream manuals, they'll say, look for something that's complex. And the carpet looked complex, but it was all correct. Then I thought to myself, probably not. And then I had this idea, I said, you know, I think what I should do is just try to levitate. And if I can levitate, well, then it's a lucid dream. And sure enough, I just started levitating and floating up. I was all the way at the ceiling. And I remember looking down at the nurse, and she was so surprised. And I remember wanting to joke with her, oh, that's okay, I've just had a weird day, don't mind this. And then I woke up. And I woke up because my alarm went off. And the alarm was one of the morning radio shows. So that is a lucid dream that I would have loved to have continued, because I could have flown around and, you know, been off on my own. The reason I tell the story like that is that I want the listener, I want you, the listener, to get the experience that we all have in dreams, that we take for granted, that if we're, you know, doing something at the onset of the dream, that we're in normal waking consciousness. But yet having that shift, I think, and the awareness, you know, the trigger, where does that come from? How do we trigger that? How do we get that sense of, is this a dream? That's the challenge, and I'd like to provide a lot of good working material to help people to gain that awareness. Lucid living, as I've called it, is being in a waking state. Lucid dreaming is being in a dreaming state. So the question is, what does lucid mean? Well, after studying lucid dreaming for a long time, I realized that a part of the work to have lucid dreaming is when you're in a waking state to repeat certain practices, one of which is to ask yourself several times a day, am I dreaming? And I realized that with that type of focus, that I actually could also ask myself other questions about life issues and goals that I had wanted to achieve. And through a regimen of focusing on sort of hyper-focusing or meta-focusing on my waking state, but coming from an overview that why do I want to be lucid in my dreams? The reason I want to be lucid in my dreams might be to have a lot of fun. The reason I want to be lucid in my dreams might be to explore inner states. The reason could be that I'd like to be bolder in my life and meet people or do things. And each one of those answers actually is something that I can do when I'm in my waking state. So I've understood that lucid living or lucid waking is a valuable state to have too, and I'd like to explain that to you in this seminar. Shamanic realization, I think, is a sense of using the practices and the awarenesses that culturally and historically have been used by shamans of different cultures in order to have a higher realization. Higher realization, enlightenment, increased awareness, emboldened living, all of that stuff really comes under the same heading. Shamanic realization is a way of life. Shamans, if you recall, a lot of times Native Americans or with primitive tribes have been very respectful of all life, whether it's plants, animals, etc. And I think that is the hallmark of respecting yourself. Having a balance for yourself in the world and having an acute appreciation of what it's like to be a conscious being in the world, and to use the practices of shamans to enhance that, such as meditative states, such as lucid dreaming, such as deep respect for what might be termed the other world. The shamans have this idea that, that there's this world and then there's the other world, and that the crossing over through the threshold is done internally, not just upon the moment of death. And then there are practices that shamans have had to simulate or to shock our system into having a death experience, near-death experiences. There's some other techniques involving breathing that have been used in yoga, that have been used in rebirthing, that have been used in a lot of ways. Altering the breath can be a very powerful way to get ourselves into quite a different state. And what you want is to become shamanic in all aspects of your life.